Alright guys, let's make sure you're ready for that big Unit 2A test tomorrow. Unit 2 is the whole foundation for these next 3 years of math. We gotta make sure we can solve equations. So you've been working really hard. You know what you're doing. Now let's put it to the test. So the test will look very much like this review. And here we go. Number 1, remember we're trying to get our variable by itself. First, we want to isolate it by getting anything that's a constant away from it. So we'll add 9 to both sides to do the inverse of negative 9. So we'll have b divided by 2 equals 10 then. And then how do you get rid of divided by 2? You got to multiply by 2 to both sides so that 2 over 2 will cancel out and you'll end up with b equals 20. So we would put in here 20. Make sure tomorrow that you put all of your answers on your paper and any of the multiple choice fill-in ones on Mastery Manager. So you'll bubble in 20 to 0. Alright, now the difference on number 2 is that this p is tangled up and this 4 is tangled up in this whole fraction. So we don't have a constant sticking out that we can get rid of. So what we have to do first is get rid of this divided by 15. So this one's a little different because there wasn't a constant sticking out like the negative 9 was. So we'll multiply by 15 to get rid of that dividing, and we'll multiply this side by 15. So then we end up with 15 equals p minus 4. So this fraction went away. And now we can just add 4 to both sides to get that p alone. So we end up with 19 equals p. That's my bell. You can ignore that. Sorry, that was in the background of the video. So this one you would bubble in A. Alright. So hopefully you've ironed out your steps by heart. If we have distributing, we got to do that first. So we're distributing a negative 4. Negative times negative will give us positive. Negative times negative will give us positive, and 4 times 8 is 32. It's not going to help you to copy this video down if you can't do that in your head that fast. You're going to have to pause it, give yourself a chance to calculate things ahead of me, and then hit play so that you can check and make sure you're not making little mistakes. So we bring down our negative 96. Now we've got to get this x by itself. So first we get rid of any constants that are sticking out. So I'll minus 32 to both sides. Now, if I have negative 96 and I minus 32 more, I'm going to get negative 128 equals 16x. And then I'll have to divide. And don't take my word for it. You know, double check your own self. So a negative divided by a positive should give you negative 8 equals x, or 1x, because 16 divided by 16 is 1. So we'll have negative 8 for our answer. So this one has a little, it's not that it's difficult, but you got to pay attention to your signs. So 2 is sticking out here. We got to get rid of that. So we'll minus 2, because 2 minus 2 is nothing. So we'll minus 2. But that minus right there makes people want to add things, so you have to be careful. Alright, so we get 14 equals, now that minus, you can't just ignore it. We have negative v. So hopefully you know that means you have negative 1v. And to get rid of multiplying by negative 1, you're going to divide by negative 1. Otherwise, you'll end up, you see these choices here. You've got to know how to handle your signs so you're not taking a 50-50 chance gambling with your answer. So you're going to get a positive divided by a negative is negative 14 equals v. So we'll go with D. Alright, now we've got variables on both sides. So before I start moving any constants, I'll always make sure my variable's on one side. What I notice is that I have some like terms here. And they're on the same side, so I don't do opposites. I just do what they say. 12 minus 8 will give me 4m. And then I've got 4m minus 25 over here. Now I have to get my variables on one side. So I'm going to have to minus 4m to get rid of this. Minus 4m to get... Oh, but I accidentally got rid of this. So remember, you have to have something on both sides of the equals. So this will be 0. I don't have anything over here. And this will be negative 25. No variables left. So that's a special case. This is not true. 0 does not equal negative 25. So that is false, which means we have no solution to that one. Okay, so if all the variables cancel out, you either end up with true, which will be all real numbers, or false, which will be no solution. So on number 6, we have to distribute first. So we're multiplying a 7. So we'll get 56x. 7 times negative 2 give us negative 14. And then we've got negative 14 plus 56x. Now some people will notice that these are identical. We have a negative 14 and a positive 56x. So they already know it's all real numbers. But not all of us. So let's get our variable on one side. So we'll minus 56x. And then what happened is our variable canceled out on both sides. But we ended up with negative 14 equals negative 14. And that is true. So if we don't have any variables, we have to pay attention to if it's a true or a false statement. 0 equals negative 25 is false. Negative 14 equals negative 14 is true. So that's all real numbers. All right. So here's a doozy. These next two, these are the time consumers here. So what's getting distributed is negative 8. That's the one touching, right? So don't get distracted by the 5. You got to distribute first. So the 5 will come down. Negative 8 times negative 4 will give me positive, so we'll write that down for our sign, 32n. And negative 8 times positive 2 will give us negative 16. So the signs come from, when you clear the parentheses by multiplying, the signs do not drop down. They come from whatever you get when you multiply those two types of numbers. All right, 39 plus 7n on this side. All right, no like terms on this side, but over here I do. I have 5 and I have negative 16. When I'm combining like terms on one side, I do not do opposites. I just do what they say. So 5 minus 16, definitely going to get a negative number, right? That should be negative 11 plus 32n equals 39 plus 7n. Now, before I make my 7 better. Before I start adding 11, I want to make sure my variables are on one side. You notice right now they're on both sides. So I can't decide what to move until my variables are on one side. So I need to cancel them by doing the inverse. So I'm going to minus 7n on this side so that I only have n's on the left. So I've got negative 11. 32 minus 7 will be positive 25n. And that'll equal 39. Now I can see that my n's over here, so which constant do I want to move? I want to move this negative 11 because it's sticking out on the n side. So we want to get everything away from our variable. So we'll cancel that out by adding. So we'll have 25n equals, that'll give us 50. And then we'll divide, and you guys probably all know what 50 divided by 25 is. That'll give us 2. So we'll put 2, and we'll bubble in a 2. Make sure you show all your work to get all your points. Now, when you're distributing a fraction, remember you learned that the sign goes with the numerator. So we have negative 2 times 3, and the n goes with the numerator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this. Negative 2 over 3. 3n over 2, right, and negative 5 over 2 to help me keep track of my signs and variables. And then we've got equals n plus 8/3. Okay, so when I first distribute, I'm doing top to top, bottom to bottom as far as multiplying goes. So this top would give me negative 6n. And then negative 2 times negative 5 will give me positive 10 over 3 times 2 is 6 and 3 times 2 is 6. So that's that side. Equals n plus 8 over 3. So then I have to look at my three denominators, 6, a 6, and a 3, and I have to think of a number that all three of those can divide into. And I realize that 6 can go into itself, so I'll check 3. 3 can go into 6. So I have to multiply every term times the number I've decided on, including the one with no fraction. You see this one? That's the one people forget. So if there is a fraction, we'll divide into it. 6 goes into 6 one time. So that's just gone. 6 goes into 6 one time. This doesn't have anything to go into it, so it'll stay a 6. And 3 goes into 6 two times. So we'll actually be multiplying by 2 on this one. So negative 6 times 1, because that one in once, will just be negative 6n. 10 times 1 will just be positive 10. 6 times n means this will be 6n. And then 8 times 2 will give us positive 16. And then we don't have any more fractions, so that's great. Now, we have to get our variables on one side, so I'm going to minus this one. That's gone. And I'm going to minus this one. Same thing. So I'm minusing, this is the one I'm minusing right here. I'm minusing that to both sides. So some people will accidentally cross this out and get 10 equals 16, and they'll be looking for no solution. So be careful, it might be there. But negative 6 minus 6 doesn't cancel. It makes negative 12n. So watch out for that. Plus 10 equals 16. So now my variable is just on one side, so I know I have to get rid of this part. So to get rid of plus 10, I'll minus 10. And then negative 12n equals 16 minus 10 will be 6. Then I'll divide by negative 12. Now here's where people accidentally say negative 2. Okay? But this doesn't say 12 divided by 6. It says 6 divided by 12. Okay? So we're going to have to reduce that. We know it's negative because one negative sign makes a negative. So negative. And 6 goes into both of these. So that will reduce to 1 over 2. So we will pick negative 1/2. Might want to spend a little extra time on that one, practicing it. That's a good one. All right. Now we have inequalities. So we have to notice we're dealing with inequalities, which means at our last step, if we divide by a negative, we're going to have to flip that symbol. All right, so let's see. Distributing negative 9, we'll get negative 36 minus 36n less than 9 plus 9n. So we'll keep track of our symbol here. Oops. We'll get our variables on one side. So I'm going to minus this one. When I'm doing inequalities, I definitely like to try to bring things to the left so I don't have to rewrite them at the end. So I have negative 36. This keeps sticking. Negative 36. And then negative 36 minus 9 more will be negative 45n is less than 9. Okay, now my n is on one side, so I know what I have to get rid of next, which would be the negative 36. So I'll add 36 to both sides. Okay, bringing my symbol down here. So I have negative 45n is less than 9 plus 36 is 45. Now, the thing we have to watch out for is we're about to divide by a negative. Okay? So, if we divide both sides by a negative on the last step, we have to flip, right? And the reason we have to flip is because we divided both sides, because n was negative on the last step, so we divided by a negative. So this is gone, and we get n is greater than negative 1. 45 divided by negative 45 is negative 1. So the set of all n where n is greater than negative 1, which would give us this one. Watch out for that dividing by a negative rule. Okay, so over here, we know we've got to get rid of the 10 first by subtracting. So we'll have x divided by 5 is greater than or equal to 3. And then we have to multiply to get rid of that dividing. So we'll multiply by 5. So we get x is greater than or equal to, sorry about my pen, guys, kind of jacking up, greater than or equal to 15. We didn't have to flip anything that time. So if I look at that graph, I always like to look at a graph before I try to pick interval notation. So if this is 0, let's pretend this is 15. Closed circle, and greater than goes this way, the way it's pointing, like an arrow. And so that means that we've got a closed circle on 15, and it goes all the way to the right, which goes to infinity, and infinities never have brackets, so we're looking at B. The bracket is because the circle was closed because it had equal to, okay? Equal to causes it to be closed, which causes a bracket. You're doing great. All right, so here we've got variables on both sides. So first I want to move my variable by doing the inverse to get them on one side. All right, then I've got negative 12. Negative 5 plus 6 will give me just 1, so that's good. And then we've got negative 18. Now we need to add 12 to get this n by itself. So add 12. So carefully make sure negative 18 plus 12, right? Negative 18 plus 12. That'll give us negative 6. Okay. So we know that my dot needs to go on negative 6. This equal sign tells us that it's closed. So we can rule out this one and this one. And then this is pointing, if you want to think of it as an arrow, it's pointing to the right because this is greater than. So it needs to be going this way, greater than negative 6. All right. True or false? Is 8 in the solution? Well, solutions make things true. All right. Well, let's see. If I plug 8 in for D, I would have negative 2 times 8 plus 5 is greater than 15. Now, it's not going to work if you don't know what that symbol means. So that says greater. It's pointing to the right where things get bigger. So negative 16 plus 5 is greater than 15. Well, I don't know. Negative 16 plus 5 is still going to be negative 11. Is that greater than 15? I don't think so. That's false. Which is not part of the solution set. So we have to plug them in and see which ones do not make it true. So not part of the solution. So if I plug in 7, I would have 7 plus 4 times negative 8. So that's going to be 11 times negative 8. Negative 88 is greater than or equal to negative 88. Yeah, because of the equal to, right? So that one works. So if I try 2, I'd have negative 8 times 2 plus 4, which would be 6. So negative 8 times 6. So negative 48 is greater than or equal to negative 88. Well, negative 48 is bigger than negative 88 because this is more negative, right? So this is lower. So if I look at a number line, and here's 0, negative 1, blah, 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 here, negative 48, 50, blah, 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 all the way to negative 88 is way over here. So this is smaller, right? And this is bigger. So negative 48 is bigger than 88. That's true. All right. So the first two are true. So now we'll try 9. Let's see. 9 plus 4 times negative 8. So negative 8 times 13. Right? And so do it in your calculator. Negative 8, or your head, times 13, however you do it. Negative 104 is greater than or equal to negative 88. Well, negative 104 would be over here somewhere, right? Negative 104. So that's even smaller, even smaller. So is it greater than 88? No. So this is false. And if I plug in negative 26, I'm going to end up multiplying a negative and a negative number, which will be positive, which will definitely be more than negative 88. So you'll check them until you find one that is false. Okay. Let's see here. Number 14. When I combine like terms here, these cancel out. Negative 5x plus 5x makes nothing. So I'd have negative 8 equals negative 8, which is true. Which means what? We have infinitely many solutions to that one, because all the variables canceled out. Okay, now we have to be careful. We have double distributing here. So we'll distribute this guy, 5p plus 20. Okay, now be careful. You're distributing a negative 3 to this one. So negative 3 times p will be negative 3p. Negative times negative will be positive 3. 3 times 1 is 3. So negative times negative is positive. All right. Now we've got some like terms. So 5p minus 3p will be 2p. And then 20 plus 3 would be 23. All right. Got kind of easy. Once we get it cleaned up, it's not too bad. It's just distributing and being careful with our signs. So minusing 23 to both sides, I get 2p equals 2. So once I divide by 2, p is going to equal 1. Had a blank one there. All right. Now, we got to work with a couple fractions here. We can do this. So, negative 6 times negative 9 will give us positive 54 over 5 times 5 is 25. Now, remember, this is a 1, and if it's not a fraction, it's over 1. So negative 6 times 1n will be negative 6n over 5 times 1 will be 5. Okay. Is greater than 24 over 25. So when we go to look at our fractions, we've got a 25, a 5, and 25. We'll look at the biggest, which is 25. It can go into itself. Can 5 also go into it? Yes. All right. So our number is 25, which means that anything with a 25 on the bottom is just going to go in there once, and that'll just cancel out. But 5 goes into 25 5 times. So that one is going to have to multiply. So this one is a 5. So this will just be 54. And then that's my bell again. Don't worry. Bells are always ringing around here. Negative 6n times 5 would be negative 30n. Is greater than 24. All right. Now, my variable's here, so I have to get rid of this constant. So I will add, nope, I will minus 54 from both sides. Minus 54. So I'll get negative 30n is greater than 20 minus 54. 24 minus 54 will be negative 30. Now, watch out. You see that we're about to have to divide by a negative number. So we know already it's going to have to flip. So we're going to divide by a negative 30, divide by a negative 30. So n is going to be less than, and negative divided by negative is positive 1. So n is less than 1. Okay, so open circle on 1, going to the left. Set builder notation means the set of all n where n is less than 1. And you can look back to number, let's see, there was right here, number 9, to see what that set builder looked like if you needed to. Because they have it in the choices. Okay, and I think that this is our last question. All right, big number there. 241 is less than, we're distributed in -8. So negative times negative will be positive 56p. And then positive 64 plus 3p. And again, I'm just noticing we're going to use set builder. Okay, so we've got 241 is less than. When I combine like terms, I've got 56p and 3p. And it says adding, so 59p plus 64. So my p is here. So I'm going to want to get rid of the 64 on this side. So I'll minus 64, and I'll minus 64. Okay? So 241, take your time, minus 64, just going to give you 177. 177 is less than 59p. Now you can see our p's on the right side, so we're going to have to be careful when it comes to graphing. So we're going to divide. And then when we divide 177 by 59, we're going to get 3. So don't, be careful what you're doing. Keep everything in line. So 3, this is 3, is less than p. All right, nothing had to flip because we didn't have anything negative. So the same as this would be, if 3 is less than p, that means p is greater than 3, right? So the same version would be p is greater than 3. So if the small end was on the 3, the small end is still on the 3. If the wide end was on the p, the wide end is still on the p. So here is the same answer. The reason we want variable on the left is for graphing. So variable on the left. You can see that if someone saw this, they might think of it as less than, and they would graph to the left, which would be incorrect because this is a greater than, so it's going to go to the right. P is greater than 3, so open circle because there's no equals, going to the right. So set notation, set of all p where p is greater than 3. Don't know why these two got connected here. So the set of all p where p is greater than 3. All right, so 17 questions. You can do this, right? Now you're going to have a chance to get a great grade here. And if you decide that you would like a blank copy to practice with after you're all done with class today, ask the sub and they should have some blank copies in case you want to practice with a blank one. All right. You're going to do great.